Canada's top import and exports. Hello viewers, welcome to the Big Man Business YouTube channel. Here is another highly informative video. In this video, we're going to be talking about Canada's top import and exports. Keep watching, we got it all covered. The Dominion of Canada, also known as the Great White North, shares a busy and extensive southern land border with its largest trading partner, the United States of America. In 2020, Canada shipped $390.8 billion worth of goods around the world. This figure represents a 0.1% increase from 2016 to 2019, but a minus 12.5% decrease from 2019 to 2020. According to a continental perspective, 74.6% of Canada's exports were delivered to other North American countries, while 12.3% were sold to Asian importers. Another 10.1% of Canada's exports went to Europe. Latin America, excluding Mexico but including the Caribbean, got 1.4%, Africa got 1%, and Oceania, led by Australia and New Zealand, received smaller percentages of 0.5%. If you're new to the Big Man Business YouTube channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to receive updates on new business expert videos. For more international business news and updates, please visit www.bigmanbusiness.com. Canada's top trading partners. The following is a list of 15 of Canada's most important trading partners, as well as the countries that imported the most Canadian shipments in terms of dollar value in 2020. The percentage of total Canadian exports for each import country is also shown. The United States has a GDP of $287.1 billion, which is 73.5% of total Canadian exports. $18.8 billion in China, which is 4.8%. $15 billion in the United Kingdom, which is 3.8%. $9.2 billion in Japan, which is 2.4%. $4.8 billion in Germany, which is 1.2%. $4.6 billion in Mexico, which is 1.2%. $4.1 billion in the Netherlands, which is 1%. $3.5 billion in South Korea, which is 0.9%. $2.8 billion in France, which is 0.7%. $2.8 billion in Italy, which is 0.7%. $2.7 billion for India, which is 0.7%. Norway is worth $1.9 billion, which is 0.5%. Belgium is worth $1.9 billion or 0.5%. $1.6 billion in Brazil is valued at 0.4%. $1.6 billion for Australia is valued at 0.4%. In 2020, the above 15 trade partners accounted for over 9/10 or 92.7% of Canadian exports. Norway went up with 17.1%, Italy was up with 12.8%, and China went up by 12.8%. Are the top three increasers among Canada's top trading partners, which were up by 7.2%. India was down by minus 24.1%, Belgium down by minus 20.2%, and Mexico were the top decliners in terms of consuming Canadian exports, down by minus 16.7%. From 2019 to 2021, the value of Canada's shipments to its largest customer, the United States, decreased by 14.8%. Canada's top 10 imports. In 2020, Canada will import $405 billion worth of goods from foreign suppliers. This represents a 0.6% increase over 2016, but a minus 10.6% decrease from 2019 to 2020. The Canadian dollar has depreciated by minus 1.2% against the US dollar since 2016, according to the average exchange rate for 2020, and has retreated by minus 1.1% from 2019 to 2020. Because of Canada's weaker local currency, imports paid in stronger US dollars were relatively more expensive when converted from the loonie. From a continental perspective, fellow North American countries accounted for 55% of Canada's total imports by value in 2020. 25.8% of Canada's imports came from Asian partners, while 14.1% came from Europe. Latin America with 3.3%, excluding Mexico but including the Caribbean, Africa with 1.2%, and Oceania with 0.6%, led by Australia and New Zealand, received smaller percentages. Given Canada's population of 38 million people, the country's total of $405 billion in goods imported in 2020 equates to roughly $10,700 in annual product demand from each citizen. In terms of dollar value, the following product groups will account for the majority of Canada's import purchases in 2020. The percentage share of each product category in terms of total imports into Canada is also shown. $61.2 billion in machinery, including computers, account for 15.1% of total imports. $56.2 billion in vehicles account for 13.9%. $39.7 billion in electrical machinery and equipment account for 9.8%. Mineral fuels, which include oil, are worth $20.2 billion valued at 5%. $17.4 billion in gems and precious metals account for 4.3%. $16 billion in plastics and plastic articles account for 3.9%. $14.3 billion in pharmaceuticals account for 3.5%. $11.5 billion in optical, technical, and medical equipment account for 2.8%. $8.8 billion in iron and steel articles account for 2.2%. $8.3 billion in furniture, bedding, lighting, signs, and prefabricated buildings account for 2.1%. Over 3/5 or 62.6% of the total value of Canada's product purchases from other countries was accounted for by its top 10 imports. The value of gems and precious metals increased by 68.3% from 2019 to 2020, owing to increased purchases of gold, silver, and platinum. The pharmaceuticals category, with a 3.2% increase, was the other top category to show improved import sales. Mineral fuels, including oil, was down by -39.4% and vehicles were the top import decliners in Canada, down by -24.5%. Canada's top 10 exports. In 2020, Canada exported a total of $390.8 billion worth of goods around the world. This figure represents a 0.1% increase from 2016 to 2019, but a -12.5% drop from 2019 to 2021. The Canadian dollar has depreciated by -1.2% against the US dollar since 2016, according to the average exchange rate for 2021, and has retreated by -1.1% from 2019 to 2021. Canadian exports paid for in stronger US dollars were relatively less expensive for international buyers due to the weaker local currency. Crude oil, automobiles, gold, automotive parts or accessories, and sawn wood were Canada's top export products by value in 2020. Over a quarter of Canada's total export sales are accounted for by these major exports. The commodities themselves point to a reasonably diverse range of exported goods. Canada is a world leader in the export of sawn wood, crude oil, automobiles, and gold. According to the most recent available country-specific data, importers in the United States represents 73.5% of the global total, China with 4.8%, the United Kingdom with 3.8%, Japan with 2.4%, Germany with 1.2%, Mexico with 1.2%, the Netherlands with 1.0%, South Korea with 0.9%, France with 0.7%, Italy with 0.7%, India with 0.7%, and Norway with 0.7% purchased 91.4% of products exported from Canada. In terms of value, 74.6% of Canada's exports were delivered to other North American countries, while 12.3% were sold to Asian importers. Another 10.1% of Canada's exports went to Europe. Latin America, excluding Mexico but including the Caribbean with 1.4%. Africa got 1%, and Oceania, led by Australia and New Zealand, received smaller percentages of 0.5%. With a population of 38 million people, Canada's total exports of $390.8 billion in 2020 equate to roughly $10,300 per resident. The following export product groups are the most valuable in terms of dollars in Canadian global shipments in 2020. The percentage share of each export category in terms of total exports from Canada is also shown. Mineral fuels, including oil, are valued at $69 billion or 17.7% of total exports. $46.5 billion in vehicles or 11.9%. $28.9 billion in machinery, including computers or 7.4%. $23 billion in gems and precious metals valued at 5.9%. $13.5 billion in wood, which account for 3.4%. $12.4 billion in plastics and plastic articles account for 3.2%. $11 billion in electrical machinery and equipment account for 2.8%. $9.9 billion in ores, slag, and ash account for 2.5%. $9.7 billion for aircraft and spacecraft account for 2.5%. $8.5 billion in pharmaceuticals account for 2.2%. The top 10 exports from Canada account for roughly 3/5 or 59.5% of the total value of Canadian global shipments. Wood was the fastest growing of the top 10 export categories, with a 15% year-over-year increase since 2019. Ores, slag, and ash came in second with a 12.3% increase in export sales, led by iron and copper. Canada's gem and precious metal shipments grew at the third fastest rate, increasing by 8% year-over-year, owing to higher revenues from exported platinum and silver. Mineral fuels, including oil, were the biggest loser among Canada's top 10 export categories, falling by -29.8% due to lower revenues from petroleum oils and gases. Canada's total exported goods account for 21.6% of the country's overall gross domestic product, valued at $1.809 trillion in purchasing power parity US dollars in 2020. In 2020, exports will account for 21.6% of overall GDP per PPP, down from 23.5% a year ago. Although based on a limited time frame, this appears to indicate a decreasing reliance on products sold on international markets for Canada's total economic performance. The unemployment rate is another important indicator of a country's economic performance. According to the International Monetary Fund, Canada's unemployment rate in 2020 was 9.4%, nearly double the average of 5.825% in 2019. Thanks for watching this video. We are open to suggestions. Kindly drop your comments in the comment box and don't forget to subscribe to the Big Man Business YouTube channel. See you in the next video. Sources: https://www.worldstopexports.com/Canada's top exports/ https://www.worldstopexports.com/Canada's top 10 imports/ Wikipedia